Hello and welcome to the Geekly, episode 32. Can you believe it? Time has flown by. I'm Jules.
I'm Lex.
This is going to contain spoilers for Arrow, Supergirl, Black Lightning season finale, the latest Doom Patrol episode, which was called Doom Patrol, and Batman Under the Red Hood. And Batman Under the Red Hood contains some very kind of all of Batman kind of. There's a big moment in this that's kind of part of the whole Batman lore, so you've been warned. I will quickly talk about a couple of polls that we ran. I asked people, any Assassin's Creed fans out there think Haytham Kenway should have his own game, kind of intersecting with Assassin's Creed 4, Assassin's Creed 3, Assassin's Creed Rogue, possibly across 2 continents. He's certainly one of my favourite characters. 77% of you said yes, so clearly he's one of your favourite characters as well. Another poll, did you enjoy Captain Marvel? 101 votes. 80% said yes. I chose the words for this very carefully. Did you enjoy? So 20% of people went there and didn't even enjoy it. I mean, I didn't say was it the best one ever. Is it your favourite film of all time? Did you enjoy it? And still 20% of people. Next question. I don't know if you responded to this one. They announced Thor 4 as a buddy movie.
Oh yeah, I did.
Who is it about? Thor and Valkyrie, Thor and Rocket, Thor and Carol, Thor and Loki. And with 32% of the vote, I think it might have been the one I voted for actually. I think I voted for Thor and Valkyrie. What did you vote for?
I think I voted for Thor and Rocket.
With 32% of the vote, Thor and Rocket is what you would like to see as a Thor 4 buddy movie.
I mean, Thor and Rocket, the pairing of Thor and Rocket was my favourite part of Infinity War.
Oh god, yeah.
I mean, it was
when they came through the thing and they were there, and yeah.
I mean, I never would have put those two characters together ever. Never would have matched them up as a buddy team. But whoever came up with that pairing was just an absolute genius.
Yeah, it wasn't kind of dude bro Thor Ragnarok, Thor and Endgame. He was a bit more kind of stoic, a bit more kind of Thor 2 maybe or something. And you've got that contrast with Rocket is just
yeah, because Infinity War was after he got his full god powers, and so now he's kind of if you think about Thor like a Pokemon, he's evolved to a certain level now, so he's a bit more serious. And
yeah.
I think that the next Thor movie should just be him, Rocket, Valkyrie, and the Hulk kind of going on a mission together.
I mean, we laugh. It would make 800 million at the box office.
I would watch it so many times.
Speaking of box offices, Captain Marvel, last time I looked, it's certainly passed 900 million at the global box office.
Yeah, it's doing amazing.
What's 3 weeks? It'll certainly make $1 billion this week, if it hasn't already. Let's crack on. What do you want to talk about first?
Let's start with Under the Red Hood, because it was kind of the best part of the week, really. In terms of the animated films, this is definitely the best one we've seen so far.
I absolutely agree with that.
It was the most kind of engaging and interesting, and I don't know a huge amount about Jason Todd. So it was kind of interesting to see have a film where he's kind of he's not the protagonist because he's a bad guy, but the kind of central Robin.
Yeah, I
really liked that Nightwing was in it.
Yeah, I did as well.
That was, and played by Neil Patrick Harris, which I did not recognize through the whole thing. I saw his name on the credits, and then at the end I was like, who was he?
Yeah,
and he was Nightwing.
I got that he was Nightwing, but the one I didn't get was, is it Jason Isaacs? Was Ra's al Ghul Lucius Malfoy?
Really?
Yeah, and that was the one I didn't get till the end as well. So it was yeah. But the other one I got Batman. He played what's his name in Star Trek. It'll come back to me. Pike, Captain Pike from Star Trek 1 with the Chris Pine Star Trek. I would agree. I think this was a really strong animated film. This is a really good Batman film, let alone it being animated. It was great seeing a Nightwing. I'm used to watching the animated series. You occasionally got a Robin, you never got a Nightwing. And I just love that Batman just treat him like an absolute dick. Batman was such a dick to him the entire time. Just that time with the Batwings flying in and he goes up and goes across to Gotham and Nightwing's fine, so I'm dealing with these guys then. The fact that he'd elevated himself from Robin to a Nightwing didn't matter. He's still just someone that Batman's going to shit on. And it was just, I think I don't know much about Jason Todd either. Unfortunately, the twist, not much of a twist, it was signposted the whole way through, but it was what ruined for me 10 years ago at least. Yeah, he was a very interesting character. I know it's an animated series, but did it bother you that is this big explosion and his body was just untouched?
With the animated films, I mean, watching Batman and Nightwing leap across all of these, I mean, they fell so far, so many times, and just kind of got up and did backflips into some other thing. So I mean, you do kind of have to suspend disbelief a little bit and expect that these kind of average humans are going to be doing very superhuman things.
Yeah, I just thought I mean,
it did bug me a little bit.
Yeah, you've got his body, and obviously he is dead, and he feels the pulse, and somehow, like, they're able to do this switcheroo with the bodies. I just think Batman, the greatest detective there's ever been, should have been more wise to that.
Didn't he say at some point that he didn't look in the coffin, and so that's why he didn't notice that it was a fake body?
Yeah,
he had to wait until, like, he had to dig him up and pull him out.
Yeah, it was really weird. And then Alfred's like, "Oh, see, he's still there," and you think Alfred, mate, he would be kind of rotting, you know, he'd be like a skeleton kind of. What was 5 years? I mean, I don't know how. I just thought like he would have been partially like rotted, but Alfred's like, "Yep, there he is. Yep, he's dead. Yeah." So Jason, you know, comes back all these years later as the Red Hood. What did you make of his kind of idea that he wanted to control crime? He says, you know, obviously Batman spent so many years trying to stop crime, but controlling it is the way to actually win. What did you make of that kind of ideology?
It's an interesting one. It comes up a few times in different superhero stories. I mean, like, you think about Gotham, Penguin did this thing where there was like approved crime and unapproved crime, and it's like,
was it like the episode Pax Penguina or something? Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah,
and so it's this idea that, like, if you kind of regulate crime, it's more beneficial than trying to, like, stop crime completely. And you can kind of see where he was coming from, because, like, they even said that crime was down.
Yeah, crime was down, which was very interesting. All the people, I think, got even a higher percentage than they had been getting when they were under the protection of Black Mask or something.
So what he was doing really was actually beneficial. And so, like, so you have a villain, but he's not completely a villain. Like, he's not out to destroy the world or do world domination. He just wants to make the city a better place, but he has kind of off-the-wall methods.
And he killed.
Yeah.
He had to know.
Yeah, because he said, you know, like, certain criminals you can keep under control through fear and intimidation, but then they're the ones that aren't scared, and the only way you can control them is to kill them.
And that was this big moment we had at the end where the Red Hood kidnapped Joker, and he asks Batman to meet him in Crime Alley, and he says, I understand your ways, I understand this, I understand, but, like, this guy, he killed me, and he's still breathing. Like, why didn't you avenge me? You know, we find out that Batman put the Joker into a full body cast, but he couldn't kill him. And so Red Hood kind of held a gun at the Joker. He gave Batman a gun. Batman's kind of got in his hands, and he says, I'm going to kill the Joker, and the only way you can stop me is to kill me. And obviously Batman does some amazing shenanigans and no one dies, but even at that, like, he wouldn't kill the Joker. It's very interesting.
Even if Batman was kind of a regular killer, I don't think he would kill a Joker, because the two of them have, like, this weird symbiotic relationship, and they need each other. Yeah. And so, like, as bad as Joker gets, I don't think Batman would ever be able to bring himself to the point of actually getting rid of this person.
I think it's best kind of summed up in that moment in The Dark Knight where Joker's hanging upside down, Batman's kind of won the day, and Joker's like, you can't kill me and I can't kill you. I get the feeling that we're going to be doing this dance forever, or whatever he says, and the fact that they do need each other. The Joker's there to show Batman that that's a line he will never cross. And I think the Joker just likes tormenting Batman. I think that's the reason he doesn't want Batman to die, because he loves the chase, the thrill of the chase. And he knows that, you know, the police will never get near him.
I think the Joker identifies with Batman as well. I mean, like, obviously the Joker's kind of backstory is very sort of ambiguous and
there was one in here, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. I mean, there are like a million different kind of origin stories for the Joker. So we don't have, like, a defined origin story, like, as opposed to Bruce Wayne's. Like, that's very solid. It never changes.
Never, ever changes.
Not even the slightest little bit. But I think that, like, the Joker sees himself and Batman as kind of two sides of the same coin.
And in this interpretation, it was very similar to the kind of Tim Burton 1989 interpretation of Batman creating the Joker, very literally. They're kind of, I think he's like a petty thief or something.
Yeah, it's like a bank robber as the Red Hood.
Yeah, and so I can't remember exactly how they do it, but he kind of slips and falls in, and Batman can't save him, and he falls into the acid, I think.
Flammable acid stuff.
Yeah, and that's how he's kind of born. And I liked how the kind of playing cards kind of came to the surface, because it was kind of like a memory. So that's how he was created. Some great fight scenes, I thought, in this film. Red Hood and Batman fighting together when he found out that it was Jason. He did a little DNA match. I like that. I like the kind of confrontation between Joker and Black Mask as well, where Black Mask basically springs him out of Arkham. It's like, I need you to do a job and you're the one crazy enough to actually do it. And Joker asks for a glass of water. About like 10 seconds later, everyone in the room is dead or dying except Black Mask. And he's like, okay, well, that was my like job application. I'm going to need more guys. Not these guys, because they're all like dead. But that was interesting, because I don't know much about Black Mask either.
Yeah, this was like my first encounter with Black Mask, so I didn't really have any sort of preconceptions about him.
I liked Jason's reaction when he was in the Lazarus pit. It was very Sarah Lance, and the fact that he kind of went crazy. I liked the fact that he was like bandaged up like a mummy when he was lowered into it. He kind of went crazy, and over the years he must have kind of got his mind back, and that's when he went back to Gotham.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too that like Ra's al Ghul did it as kind of an apology to Batman. It was like, you know, I mean that whole conversation between them and Batman was like, you kill people left and right. Like, what is this one death? And it's like, well, this was unintentional, so. You know, I feel bad. Yeah. Because I'm sorry I killed your protege.
Here he is. He's a bit different, but yeah. One other thing I liked, finally, was the Jason Todd flashbacks when he was a young Robin with Batman. Batman was wearing kind of an Adam West era suit.
Yeah.
And then went up against the Riddler, and his goons, who were also dressed in kind of Adam West era Riddler and goons uniform. I really liked that. You didn't see kind of like pow and zap when they punched each other, but it was a nice kind of nod to the history. Yes, I mean, I think that's the best we've seen so far, and it felt like a really, 3 acts, engaging, lots of action, and enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great film.
Yeah.
Let's get the Arrowverse over with. There's not really much to say. Kind of the same that's been happening for weeks now in both Arrow and Supergirl. We don't have Flash this week, so we can't
what a
about
blessing.
That.
Let's start with Supergirl. As kind of this whole episode was basically exposition, and basically what Lex Luthor's been doing for the last 3 years, and how he's kind of knows this Red Daughter, this kind of Kasnian Supergirl clone or whatever. I'm still feeling very refreshed, though, that we're not dealing with the elite Manchester Black or Ben Lockwood. I'm still feeling that's the best thing I can say about this episode, is that it's refreshing that we're not digging. They haven't jailbroken again. Like, they're not, they're not doing some other weird scheme again. Like, at least this is new and it's different, and I'm enjoying it. But there's not really enough to kind of dig your teeth into yet.
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy this one. As you said, it was all exposition. It was all kind of backstory, and like you could tell the way it ended when they're revealing the suit that the Kasnian Supergirl is going to wear. That was supposed to be this like hugely profound, momentous moment, and for me, it just fell flat. It was like we didn't need all of the backstory with Lex's involvement. I mean, it was kind of. So when I read the episode description, it was like, this is how Lex's actions have impacted Lena and Supergirl for like the past 3 years. We're like, okay, this might be really interesting to see like the level of conspiracy that he's created and everything. But then it just didn't go anywhere, and we didn't see anything new about the Red Daughter, Supergirl. We didn't have any sort of plot progression or character development or anything. Again, I don't think they utilized Lex Luthor to the best of his ability as a character. It didn't really hit the notes that it was trying to hit.
I've got to ask you a few questions. Yes or no, do you find Supergirl bland? I mean, the character of Supergirl, not the show.
Yes.
Would you then have wanted Red Daughter to be as different as humanly possible to her? Yes or no?
Yes.
The fact that she's, in this episode, discovered some humanity by going to America, by reading Kara Danvers' journal, and has kind of basically is now exactly almost the same as her. We know that she's capable of kind of love and kind of help, but she wants to help. She's seen that Kara's got that capability. So is she now almost as bland as the other Supergirl? And so do we now have kind of 2 bland Supergirls instead of 1 bland Supergirl? And is that the kind of problem?
Yes.
She should be, because that was exactly my issue with this. I mean, Lex could have turned her into an absolute monster, and it would have been quite interesting. It's the same, obviously, actress Melissa Benoist playing both roles, but she's playing the exact same role twice, except once with a Russian accent.
I think it is interesting that, as soon as she was discovered, Lex was brought into this, and through his kind of tutelage, she has become exactly the same as Supergirl, with this kind of like overblown good guy mentality, and it just seems weird that Lex Luthor would create that.
Yeah.
I mean, Superman is kind of his ultimate foe, so you would think that like he would try to instill different values, and I mean, like, he did manipulate her later on to like kind of seek vengeance, which she completely immersed herself in Kara's life and like felt empathy for her and was like, she just wants to do a good thing, and then just like completely flip with sort of very little provocation.
It was the kind of bombing, and Mikhail has been killed, and he hasn't been killed, and that's going to be the redemption story.
Yeah.
It was so, like, shot, like, heavy-handed, the fact that Otis was meant to kill this kid. He didn't. Kind of like Snow White and the Huntsman, you know. They've got the ball, his football has, like, been ripped to shreds by this explosion. Russian Kara kind of assumes the worst, and he's alive, and she's going to find out he's alive, and then she's going to want vengeance on Lex Luthor. It's already completely laid out, her redemption story. I mean, you think about Lex Luthor and another Kryptonian turning her evil, you think, oh shit, yeah, okay, I want a piece of this.
It could have been really, really awesome.
On paper, it's amazing, isn't it?
They just didn't do anything with it. They went like the easiest, safest route possible, and in my opinion, let all of these characters down because they're not able to reach their full potential. And when you have a character like Lex Luthor, it's like...
Would he be nice?
No,
he wouldn't.
But it's like having like the most powerful weapon in the world and like using it to stop a mugger at a corner store. Like it's, I mean that's what they're doing with him. Like you have this like really sort of heavy hitting villain, and they're doing like menial, trivial shit with him. And
he's sending her like books.
Yeah,
and
like
being really nice, and he's sort of telling her like about his past and his like hopes and fears almost, and it's like what
they're
part
trying
of that
to, like,
sounds like Lex Luthor?
Give us a warm, cuddly Lex Luthor, and it just, and I kind of felt this in the episode before, because you had all of those conversations between him and Lena about their childhood and you know how they felt about each other and different like sibling loyalty and stuff like that, and it's just like I don't see Lex as this like touchy-feely, I'm going to sit down and have a heart-to-heart with you kind of guy. Like,
a few questions about Lex. He has powers. Does that interest you? Does that save any of this?
When he got the cure last episode, I was kind of thinking like, oh shit, they're going to give him powers now, and it's going to be this thing. And
I mean, that's presumably where he got them, through the Harronelle or something.
And, I mean, I thought his suit was cool.
Yeah, it was kind of like an Iron Man. He jumped out of the helicopter and the suit kind of locked onto him, which I liked.
I liked that, and I think sticking with that would have been a good thing. I think giving him powers is just too much.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even without powers, he's a pretty, like, equal adversary to Superman. So then you give him powers plus, like, all of his gadgets and his intelligence and his, like, crazy mad scientist ways, and they've sort of made him almost invincible.
Yeah, and it kind of disappoints me because this made me think that at the end of Supergirl Season 4, love is going to be the answer, and hope and happiness and truth, justice and the American way is going to get into the Russian Kara's brain, and that's how it's all going to be saved. I mean, presumably, they talked about the fact that Harronelle might have split her in half or something.
Yeah.
We haven't quite explained how that's going to happen, but presumably they're not going to fuse them back together. Like, there might be an American Supergirl and a Russian Supergirl, both doing good Supergirl things. I don't know, but must stress that I do feel refreshed. You know, we're not with Manchester Black, we're not with Ben Lockwood still. It's like the cicada thing, like that's gone on for way too long, and we have got something new and something fresh, and so I'm enjoying it in that aspect, but I'm just generally disappointed and a bit blur.
I think your expectations have been lowered so much that, like,
I think that's probably
if
right.
They're not bashing a dead horse. You're like, great, this is a new episode.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, okay, it's not a repeat of, you know, the season so far, but it's still not new. It's still not innovative. It's still not interesting. It's just more bland bullshit.
One of the things I thought was quite interesting, where Miss Tessmacher is like there outside the court, and he nods at Otis and he nods at her, and they meet in his conjugal visits room.
It's a very fancy conjugal visits room.
Very fancy.
Like,
funniest line in the whole thing. You're right, I have to give myself cancer. That's about sums up my Supergirl thoughts.
So in Arrow, we learned a bit more about Dante. He's the leader of, well, turns out he's not actually the leader. Team Arrow thinks he's the leader of this group called the Ninth Circle. Yeah, my takeaways from this episode were Archer is sounding really super creepy and authoritarian, and it seems kind of weird that that everybody on Team Arrow is like, yeah, this is a really great thing, because it doesn't seem like something they'd be down for.
We're kind of heading towards a 1984 police state, and it's also, I feel like, one step away from like Minority Report. Felicity will say, well, my things tell me this person's likely to commit a crime. Haven't done it yet, but maybe we should just get ahead of it. Like, she's cheerful and happy, and
everybody's like celebrating her victory. Like, not a single person has saying, I don't know if it's a good idea to create a program that can find anyone in the world based on their DNA.
Yeah, and then Elena's like, so how did you get my DNA? And she's like, oh, yeah, sorry about that. And, like, Elena's like, weirdly laughing, like, ha 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 ha, ha, like kind of freaked out by the fact that Felicity's got her DNA unbeknownst. And the episode ends with them kind of thinking, right, well, how do we do it without getting people's DNA?
Yeah.
So they're going to evolve it even further.
They got Dante's DNA somehow too. And I was just thinking, like, if you managed to get Dante's DNA, why couldn't you just get Dante?
Yeah. Miko's little bug that brought Archer down, I guess. That's how they can get this episode. I mean, we might as well just talk a bit more about Miko because she was the episode. We find out that she kind of met Dante when she was a child. He taught her, and somehow she has surpassed him and is now the leader of the Ninth Circle. This whole time she was pretending, like Oliver tried to get closer to her, we can help you, as if she was being held against her will in the Ninth Circle.
Yeah, and she kind of made it out that, like, Dante had sort of come in when she was 11, right after Robert Queen abandoned her and her mother, and sort of took advantage of the position and, like, got her in too deep before she was old enough to realize what kind of person he really was. But, like, obviously then we find out, she's the leader of the Ninth Circle.
And then later in life he rejected a business plan, and she apparently took it pretty badly because he goes, yeah, next week I'm sailing to China on the Queen's Gambit with Oliver, the fateful Queen's Gambit journey.
Which everybody is responsible for.
Yeah, because the very final shot of this episode was Miko holding like a kind of piece of paper, like a blueprint or something
of the boat, and like an X where the explosives were put in.
And she is the one that brought down the Queen's Gambit. Should we talk about the fact that it wasn't like Malcolm Merlin banged to rights about this, and that's why they
Malcolm Merlin admitted to being responsible for it. Moira admitted to being responsible for it, and I think there was something that, like, the two of them sort of conspired against Robert, and there were some other villains involved. It was just literally, it is the crime that every criminal wants to credit for. I sunk the Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, and the new narrative is that Miko framed Merlin. I think this might be kind of for people that maybe have come in season 4 or something, season 5, haven't bothered to watch all of them, and then we're just being sold this new narrative that really doesn't make sense.
Well, like, it's just kind of continues what I've felt about this season altogether, particularly with the flash forwards, is that the details aren't adding up. There's no connectivity between what's happening, and they're just kind of, it feels very much like they're making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it would be a really great idea if Emiko was responsible for the Queen's Gambit, and, like, forgetting the fact that a couple years ago we already resolved the mystery of who sunk the Queen's Gambit and why, and all of that.
So Amiko's basically playing with this whole episode, puts a little kind of device which breaks the Archer program so they can't track Dante, but she's actually just in there getting intel on Team Arrow. And then, because Laurel told Oliver that, she thinks Amiko killed Diaz, Amiko is now framing Laurel for the murder of someone that was released on bail, that Laurel kind of wanted to beat the hell out of to get a coerced confession. So she's turned on everyone now, and it just feels a bit late in the day for all this, really, doesn't it? Like, we're introduced to a new group, the Ninth Circle. She's the new villain with like 5 episodes left or something.
I can't see them resolving this at the end of this season, just because there are so many unanswered questions. I've never really been, like, I don't think they've handled the Emiko plot and character development very well in the show. I think she could have been a really interesting character, but they've just kind of fumbled the ball every single time.
Yeah, and the new kind of idea is that Oliver doesn't want to give up on her because his father gave up on her, and that's what's led her down this dark path. So presumably till the end of the series, Oliver's going to try to redeem her. I think the Ninth Circle are a little bit too close to the League of Assassins.
This season is covering a lot of old ground. In the flash forward, we had the, like, plot to blow up Star City to get rid of crime. We had Emiko coming onto the scene with her list, and, stuff we covered in the first couple of seasons is just being replayed now with slightly different lens.
Yeah, so, not really happy with Arrow at the moment.
I kind of want to just, like, skip to next season.
Let's talk about Black Lightning.
Well, one of the things we forgot to mention last week is, like, so last week's episode, or episode 15, started off with one of the green light kids dressed up as Cape Boy. He was trapped in some sort of magnetic field or something, surrounded by cops. He's standing there and, like, begging them not to shoot him, and so of course they shoot him. And that comes back in this episode because Tobias decides to use the death of Cape Boy, or rather he wants to exploit the community's feelings about it to try to kill Black Lightning.
He wants the city to basically start looting, start rioting, this city to be a terrible place, and that's what happened. He lures out Black Lightning, and then his secondary goal is to shut down the power, because he thinks that's somehow how Black Lightning gets his energy, through the kind of the local power supply. So that was kind of a very quick summary of the whole of this season finale. Didn't really feel like a season finale.
No, it didn't. I was thinking that, like, as I was watching it, it felt like just a regular episode in the season. We kind of expect season finales to be a little bit, like...
grander.
Yeah, like, higher ambitions than your everyday...
Yeah, I mean, that's such a kind of boring thing to do. You know, he had these metas walking about, the fire one, the water one. They kind of clashed with Black Lightning a bit. And then Jennifer, basically, with her new suit, she can fly, which is awesome, flew up, starts beating on Tobias, using like her energy as like kind of lasso, throwing him down. Jefferson comes in as Black Lightning, don't kill him, you know, trying to save her soul. Then they both start beating him up, and then he goes to prison, and that was kind of it. That's very, I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say really. The momentum of this show's been kind of all over the place. We've had 2 gaps of at least 2 weeks in the last 2 months. So the momentum going into this is quite low, and we get something so lukewarm. I honestly don't think I'd ever really recommend this show to people at the moment, because I don't know if it knows what it is itself. It's not leaning enough into the superhero stuff. It's kind of abandoned Jefferson, the principal stuff. And it's kind of in this weird middle ground where it's not really compelling me.
I feel the same way. I mean, the first season was so interesting and compelling, and it really flowed well, and there weren't really any kind of extraneous points. And then you get to this season, and it just kind of feels like they didn't plan it all out properly.
Yeah, the whole point of this season revolved around Pod Kids. And even now, having watched all 16 episodes, I don't really care about Pod Kids.
Well, we haven't made any progress on the 16 episodes in, like an entire season on the Pod Kids, and it's basically been Odell saying, wake them up, and then saying, no, we can't, they'll die. And then he gets another doctor who does wake them up, and they die. They've only woken up, like, 1 or 2 of them. Let
me ask you a couple of questions. Of all the Pod Kids that have woken up, have any of the powers been, wow, that's cool?
No.
No. They're all, you know, fire out of the hands, ice out of the hands, water out of the hands, wind out of the hands. Very boring stuff. Nothing new at all. If you watch the TV series Heroes, some amazing powers that some of those people had. And this is so, like, entry-level metahumans. That was always boring. And from so long ago, we were teased about this. It's an arms race. People want these pod kids because there's going to be a war. He's going to be selling them to the highest bidder. A fucking metahuman war on the street. Yeah, like, sign me up for that. Didn't get that at all. We just got occasionally some big dudes walking around, fire out their hands, and a woman with, like, water out her hands. Really tepid, low-level stuff. And we've also been teased with the idea of Jennifer and Tobias having this big fucking showdown. She was in the room with him for, TV time? Less than, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Her dad came in and stopped her. Then they start beating him up together. And then he went to prison. We don't even get the kind of payoff of, Tobias being killed either by them or by Lala, who, again... Lala's already been killed twice by Tobias. Finally gets him, and Tobias has these words imprinted in him, kind of like the Winter Soldier in Civil War. Says one of them, and he can't shoot Tobias. Well, he shoots him once, but the bullet doesn't. He's got bullet impenetrable skin or something. And then instead of he's got 3 tattoos at this point. Yeah. His whole body sets on fire almost, with tattoos being carved into him everywhere. First thing, he's definitely going to need a minivan to cart them all around. 2, I thought he'd kill him because I thought Jefferson would probably talk Jennifer down. Jennifer, don't kill. That's the one rule. And Lala goes in and kills him.
I was counting on Lala to be the one to fatefully pull the trigger. That is an ending I would have really liked. I'm less happy with him being sent to prison because that means that next season he's going to come right back.
Yeah, to the surprise of no one. I mean, off the top of my head, I think the most powerful moment of this whole season was Khalil's spine being ripped out. That was a comic book villain thing. And so if you're going to have a kind of big final season finale confrontation, it's got to be grand. It's got to be amazing. And it just wasn't. There was nothing in this whole episode that kind of appealed to me at all.
Mean, even the last shot where you have this kind of mysterious lab thing, and there are a couple people in pods. I think Wendy is in one of them. I don't know who the other person is, but then the final person turns out to be Khalil.
To the surprise of no one.
I was I expected them to bring him back sooner,
Yeah.
but like knew we hadn't seen the last of Khalil.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same. Last week saw the Lazarus pit, the Lazarus pot, or whatever it is. I thought that might
the
be a
Lazarus
way.
vats.
Yeah.
Like...
Cooking a Lazarus stew going on there. Yeah, but yeah, he will be back, obviously. And Odell's turning up and saying, a war is coming. Well, we've heard that one before, so hopefully we will actually get a meta-human war. But it would feel so out of keeping, to be honest, because it's such a kind of... The kind of day-to-day identities are the ones that have all the kind of big moments. The superheroes of them don't really. It's quite tepid. So yeah, if there was a meta-human war, I would be shook, to be honest. I've come to the conclusion that I don't like watching fight scenes undercut by jazz or soul music. It really robs them of something. I don't know why. When they were fighting against the dude with fire and the woman with water and thunder and black lightning, it was just like kind of like soul kind of music underneath it. I don't know, maybe I've just at my limit. It's been a season of that, and I just...
It could be effective if it had been used more sparingly as kind of like a unique thing, but they did it so much, and there are only so many fight scenes you can watch to jazz.
I mean, you can have that under kind of them talking, moments of kind of character development. It just doesn't really work
with the pacing. Everything about a fight scene is about the pacing, and so the music needs to kind of reflect that, and it can be used really effectively to have kind of a slower piece of music over a really action-oriented, fast-paced fight scene. It just can't work every single fight scene.
Yeah. I'm going to finish with a few questions. Yes or no, would you recommend this show to people that are looking for a superhero show?
Tentatively, maybe. I would recommend it with conditions and basically say the first season was awesome, the second season not so much. We'll see what the third season's like.
Can you actually foresee this show crossing over with any other Arrowverse show?
No.
I cannot either.
I really want it to, but I can't see it.
No, me neither. I think we've kind of covered this. Was the Pod Kids a strong enough main, core element for this season?
No. Absolutely not.
Not even close.
It should have been a side tangent rather than kind of the central thing of each episode.
And maybe I cannot remember the name of the two Warring Tribes episode or a couple of episodes, but you can imagine this happening over sort of 3 or 4 episodes in a similar way to that did. We've got issues with Tobias. We've talked about it a lot. Is the season worse off for Tobias being removed? Because at the very least he was kind of a caricature character. There aren't really any other big presences left. I find most of the Pierce family, I mean, they're all quite softly spoken. They're not really kind of out there kind of characters. Gamby, again, he's quite sort of softly spoken. There aren't many kind of big presences like Tobias left in the show. So do you think he might not be in season 3, he might kind of come back in the future. Do you think it's kind of worse off for him not being there?
I think part of the problem with this season was the fact that Tobias was in it, but he wasn't a main villain. He was just kind of there, and we would see him doing stuff, but it never really amounted to much. He didn't really plan anything. I mean, if you think about his actions in the first season, he was really kind of proactive in instituting his plans. He sent people out to be killed and whatever, and in this season he's basically just sat around posturing and not really doing anything. So when we get to the final fight between Jefferson, Jennifer, and Tobias, it doesn't feel like there's really anything at stake because he hasn't really done anything. Even his meta army is 2 people with very basic powers. I think part of the reason that this season suffered so much was because they just had Tobias in there for the hell of it, and they didn't have enough of a adversary for the Pierces to kind of go up against. I think too often superhero shows think they have to have one big bad villain of who's above all else, and they don't. These shows could work with a villain of the week. These shows could work with 2 villains for the longer series, the ones that have 20 some episodes. But a 16 episode arc, we could have had a completely different villain than Tobias. And they could have just sent Tobias off somewhere and we just didn't hear from him. They didn't need to keep us in touch with him this whole season.
Can we just off the top of our heads talk about... I'm thinking about heroes now since I mentioned it. A couple of ones I remember that were really cool. Obviously, hero time travel. There was a guy that painted the future. There was a guy that had the Midas touch. I mean, even that. I mean, they're 3 that are kind of not even next level. They're level beyond what we get in Black Lightning. It just frustrating.
Well, even Khalil's powers were pretty interesting. He had kind of super strength and stuff, but also his blood was toxic and he could be harnessed into a paralyzing dart.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a pretty cool power. Yeah, I think they just dropped the ball with the Pod Kids. It wasn't a good plot point. They didn't develop it properly, and the season suffered for it.
Let's move on to Doom Patrol.
Stupid criminal of the week.
Steve Larson has the best name ever of a superhero. Animal, vegetable, mineral man. Robbing a convenience store, and the Velociraptor head started biting him.
Yeah,
it was delicious.
That was amazing. Like I love that. I mean, the humor of Doom Patrol is so great. Like, I mean, it's just weird and dark and kind of off the wall, and I love it.
I kind of want him to be brought back into the fold, to be honest, because he's amazing.
I don't know, like I kind of like having him as just like sort of like the cockroach that he just like pops up here and there doing his own kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably good that we talk about the light part of this episode, because it was a very dark episode. The final bit of last week's episode was basically Mr. Nobody tells Jane to go and look for the Doom Patrol, and she goes and finds this metahuman school founded by Niles, to the shock of everyone, and they find the 3 members of the Doom Patrol. And I love that the kind of reality starts to flicker, and you kind of know that something's not right. And it turns out that the Doom Patrol went up against Mr. Nobody, and Mr. Nobody destroyed them, kind of body and soul. And the 3 of them are kind of pensioners now, and they are living out their days in this place, and they are just so broken. And one of them's called Mento, and he can kind of project this reality, and so it looks like they're young, and it looks like
they actually have students, and things are kind of going good. And one of them, she's actually married to Niles in this kind of alternate reality, and
and so while our Doom Patrol are kind of talking to this Doom Patrol, and they find out that, I mean, they talk to Steve Dayton, he's the guy Mento, and they talk to him about the fight, and he talks about how they won, how it was a great victory. They lost, and they didn't just lose, they were just destroyed. It was the last ever mission for the Doom Patrol. Like I said, he destroyed them body and soul, and they are just living out their days there. They have a kind of carer, I think, called Joshua, who, I think Larry seems to recognise him from his past, which is interesting. And basically this whole thing is Mr. Nobody saying to Jane, go and find the Doom Patrol, because he wants her to know that you fuck with me and I will obliterate you. And these people, they're
basically catatonic when they're in the sort of alternate reality. Because towards the end, we finally see like real reality, and they're just all kind of decrepit and in wheelchairs and just kind of staring vacantly off, and in this really sort of depressing, rundown building. It's not a very happy episode.
Yeah, Mento's just projecting this kind of idyllic world for them all to live in. I mean, it was founded by Niles. What really broke my heart was that Joshua kind of said Niles doesn't visit anymore. Like, he hasn't been here for a long time. And Niles was kind of the 4th member of the team. And obviously he was in a wheelchair back then, and when they lost, he kind of created this sanctuary for them, but he doesn't visit anymore.
Well, I think it was kind of part of what Mr. Nobody wanted to illustrate, was that, like, our Doom Patrol is not the first attempt Niles has made to take on Mr. Nobody, and the first time it failed, and he basically abandoned the team he created, and it's kind of him saying, like, if you go up against me, Niles isn't going to back you. Like, if you fail, he's just going to tuck you away in a corner and forget about you.
The kind of confrontation they have with Mr. Nobody, he turned the police into piñatas, made all the people kind of go crazy, and they ripped these piñatas open and ate the candy. It was pretty savage.
This probably wasn't like my favourite episode of the season.
No, it kind of, like we said, we like the humour of this show. Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man was really funny, but this was dark. Like, this wasn't like funny dark. This was just dark. It was letting everybody know in no uncertain terms that Mr. Nobody isn't to be fucked with. The Doom Patrol that we know, like our present day Doom Patrol, they're not even a team. Like, they haven't even figured out their powers yet. Like, Larry doesn't know how to deal with the blue energy. She's kind of getting, with the arm extension a few weeks ago, she's kind of getting the hang of things, but Jane is unpredictable. Robot Man is kind of useless, except he can rip people in half. So even a well-prepared team, which the Doom Patrol of the 50s were.
But on top of the kind of Doom Patrol story, we also get a bit more of Rita's backstory.
Which is, again, very dark.
Yeah, which it just kind of like compounds the darkness of the episode, because she had kind of an affair with Minto, and it ended badly. He found out she did something to some girl.
He'd been brought in to kind of help her mind and to get control over her kind of whatever issue, her kind of body issue. She said, I wouldn't want people to read my mind without my permission. And his whole thing, the reason they kind of fell in love, was him kind of jokingly, I won't peek into your private thoughts. Yeah. And then he did. And he found something terrible. And this is the kind of thing that's been drip-fed to us. We get the crying baby. Yeah, we've kind of had this crying baby thing brought back. and we think it's something to do with Mary Beth, the character who he saw in her mind. So yeah, there's something very dark that he's found. I like the bit where Rita was kind of on the casting couch and she was making out with this really old guy who was going to give her a role, and then she kind of turned into the Blob and crushed him, and it was kind of Harvey Weinstein kind of encounter. And yeah, the secretary kind of ran in and was like, he had a heart attack, you weren't here, like disappear. I like that. What did you make of the character Joshua? Because Niles came up to him one moment and said, you've done great work here, but we both know where your true talents lie.
In this, he basically kind of came across as, your regular everyday administrator, although there was, like, at the end, there was kind of a scene of him taking a picture of the original Doom Patrol team after they, like, had some victory, and I wasn't sure if that was part of, like, the alternate reality or if that was actually part of the history and that, like, he just hadn't aged.
Yeah, it's weird because all the original Doom Patrol, they have aged. It's even more interesting that Rita hasn't aged. And Larry, obviously, we don't know about Larry, but Jane also hasn't aged because there's a room for Jane at this institute.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we haven't really been told more about why people aren't aging, I don't think.
No.
Maybe it's the green energy that went inside her just stops her aging.
You had it set up where, like, Jane was talking to him, Rita was talking to Minto, and Larry was talking to somebody else, and they were getting different bits and pieces of the story. At least for this episode, seemed to be like their purpose was to sort of give information to the new Doom Patrol. Yeah,
and Joshua just sums up by saying he thinks nobody wants Jane to give up. That's why he sent her to find the Doom Patrol. So, yeah, I mean, that's all this episode was. It was a big don't fuck with me. And I think everybody's suitably kind of okay.
I mean, it's a very effective don't fuck with me. I mean, like, the original Doom Patrol were, like, they're really bad off.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I were kind of the new guys, I'd be like, I don't know if we should go up against this guy. I think we should just maybe, like, draw a line under it, go do something else. Sorry, Niles, you're going to be kidnapped forever. That's just...
It was weird because, like, Silas said that Mr. Nobody isn't even on the radar of the Justice League. He says, like, they follow everybody of any interest and they haven't even heard of him. So, yeah, he seems like less than their level, but at the same time, pretty savage.
These characters couldn't really handle a villain that was up to the level of the Justice League. I mean, they're like untrained, still kind of grasping with their abilities, but I mean, their abilities are sort of questionably useful.
That's a good way of putting it.
Most of them are like highly, like they're using their abilities is highly unpredictable. So it's just sort of like this is the B team.
Definitely the B team.
I've noticed a lot of people on Twitter talking about Cyborg and how it's like the best depiction of Cyborg outside of the comics.
That's very interesting.
And yeah, because I mean, we were talking a few weeks ago about how cheap we thought it looked, and like
he seems to me mostly like a kind of pouty teenager, and then on the other side, he's kind of the know-it-all that says, it doesn't say it, but he feels like he's the leader of the team because he is in many ways the only competent one among them. I don't know, he's a bit unbearable sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, he mostly seems to just like whine about his dad. Yeah, it's a very adolescent storyline of, rebelling and trying to prove himself. And
I mean, of all the members of the team, I don't want any of them to really be competent at the moment. So the fact that if anyone was going to lead it, I wouldn't want Cyborg to kind of lead it. I'd either want Niles to lead it or maybe
Larry.
I think Larry, because he's got, I guess he's got like a military background or Air Force background. Could be an interesting leader. But yeah, of all of the characters, he's probably the one I'm least into. Cyborg is one that I'm least enjoying, I would say.
Yeah, he's probably my least favorite. In the Justice League movie, I quite liked him.
Yeah,
I did. This version just seemed like a cheap knockoff version.
He's very kind of stoic in the Justice League film, and this one is, if anything, over energetic, like very up and at 'em, like let's do this, let's have a meeting, let's devise a plan, let's do this.
Yeah, I think they've been very heavy-handed with his development, and particularly in his relationship with his father. Whereas I think, like in the Justice League film, there was a lot more subtlety to the conflict between father and son. Whereas this is just like very in your face every episode.
I more want there to be kind of quirky storylines, weird villains, because this is a weird team, and then to kind of competently do something absurd to resolve it. And he's far too kind of competent, I would say. He's a kind of functioning hero.
He's in the wrong show.
Yeah.
He basically...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to think, would he be any better in Titans? But I don't think...
I don't know, it could be interesting because you would... he and Dick Grayson would butt heads an awful lot,
Yeah.
and that could be an interesting conflict because they have like completely different styles of handling things. And obviously Cyborg sees himself as leadership material, whereas Grayson has kind of been the leader. So he's actually taken on the role instead of just imagined himself in a leadership position, so he has the experience and stuff.
Cool. See you later. Follow us on Twitter @GeekNerdPod, Facebook /The Geekly.